If you had 10,000 of the smartest people you've ever met in your life, they're ultimately loyal, willing to work for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for free, what would you have them do? Because you do.
Welcome to the Excellence Project. In this episode, we talk to Perry Belcher, who's a longtime friend and one of the smartest marketing minds I know. We talk about everything: entrepreneurial, artificial intelligence, business growth, scale, branding, the works. You're going to love it. With no further ado, let's just jump right in to my conversation with Perry Belcher. Perry Belcher.
Hey.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, brother.
So
not as good as you. I mean,
nobody's
doing as good as you and your stylish jacket. I'm going to hit this thing 27 times, so that's cool.
It's fine.
But if I had a jacket like that.
So Perry Belcher, this guy is so wicked smart. He's forgotten more than I've ever learned about marketing. And when did we first meet? Do you remember?
I think was it in the bar in Tijuana? No, I'm just kidding. No.
Like 6 or 7 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I think when I first moved here.
When you moved here, that's when we first met in person.
We started chatting back and forth that we are to meet each other, and we didn't for a while. And then I think you invited me to come to a party. You had a party out here when you opened the house. But had we met before then?
We hadn't, I don't think. But
I went to the old house once.
Yeah, but we traded messages.
Yeah.
When you lived in Texas.
Right. And I went to the old house once here before you built the mall. The mall.
The mall on the hill. Right? So talk to me. Yeah, I'd like to know your origin story.
Sure.
Where did you come from? What was your upbringing like?
My mama.
Yeah. When did you this journey that kind of led you to entrepreneurship, because I think you're a great entrepreneur, and kind of led you into becoming a marketing savant?
I don't know what the marketing savant, but it's funny because I did a podcast yesterday, and first time somebody's asked me that in a really long time, so it's kind of fresh on my mind. So I grew up in a little town called Paducah, Kentucky. I always joke it's the sound a dead body makes when it hits the floor. It's like Paducah. I heard a comedian say that once. And my mom was a single mom. She worked in a nursing home as a nurse's aide, which is quite literally the crappiest job a human can have, pretty much. By the time I was 13 or so, we were living in a housing project.
Was your dad around?
No, my dad. I never really knew my dad. I
never ever.
I met him one time that I can recall an actual conversation with him. That my mom and dad divorced when I was really young, and I had a really yucky step. I don't want to get all the poor me crap, because it kind of did frame me into who that I am.
I think it's important. The origin matters.
Yeah,
and all the different influences and drivers and
kind of an abusive stepdad. He was really physically abusive guy, but he was very charming.
A charming abuser.
He really was. He's a very charming guy, as a lot of narcissists are, right? But he's a very charming fellow, and I learned how to sell from him, and I learned how to hustle from him. So I gotta, give credit where credit's due, I guess. But my mom eventually got away from him, and we were on our own. And I remember two really.
When did you finally get away from? How old were you?
About 12.
About 12. But those early influences about being charming.
Yeah. Well, I learned humor. We moved I went to high school in an all black junior high school. So I was one of 7 white kids in 600 plus black kids. Because we had a wrong side of town, right side of town. It was very it wasn't really segregated by the law, but if you lived on this side of the town, you went to basically the white junior high school, and this side of the town, you went to black junior high school, and then the high school segregated, right? And so I went to all black junior high school.
What was that like?
I learned how to be funny. It was better than getting beat up, So I learned how to be funny, and I learned how to get along with every kind of person you could imagine, and I still do. I treat everybody exactly the same, no matter what their station in life, Because, I've got a great saying that you never know if the toe you step on today is going to be connected to the ass you have to kiss tomorrow. So, but beyond that, I just think it's a decent thing to do. But I learned how to interact with all sorts of people from different cultures. Then I went to the high school that was predominantly white high school. And so I had a different skill set there.
What was that?
And I had learned to be a little streetwise, right? And I just started hustling and making money. I was making money off kids in high school. I got thrown out of school twice for enterprising. That's actually a thing. Like, if your kid sells something in school, they kick them out.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. And then,
what were you selling?
Oh, whatever. I was selling.
What can you remember selling?
The stories sound almost unbelievable, but there was an old guy named Clark White who took an interest in me. He was a bald, gray bearded, odd. I'm joking. But he actually was. But my mom, eventually, she worked 2 jobs. She had a job at a restaurant. And when she go to the job at the restaurant at night, across from the restaurant was an apartment building. And this old man would sit on the front stoop and read the paper. And I don't know why, but somehow I started chatting with him one day. I was a little kid. And he taught me how to read the Wall Street Journal. And he taught me how to read the New York Times when I was like 12.
Taught you how to read it?
Taught me how to read world news and how to read a financial paper. And
so reading world news, what do you mean? How do you learn how to read a newspaper? Is there a method?
You didn't, you don't understand I don't know where you're from originally, but
I'm from Minnesota.
Yeah. So in my little town, it's my little town. You read the newspaper, it's about,
local little town
Aunt Martha's cat that went up the tree, right?
Yeah.
So I started reading the New York Times, and I started reading it cover to cover every Sunday. When he was done with the Times, I would read it every Sunday, and it was that thick. And he taught me how to understand financial news and things like that. He had been a Metropolitan life insurance agent. He was retired, an old bachelor. And
how did he take an interest in you?
I don't know, but he did for whatever reason.
But how did he connect with you?
I always liked older people, Well, where my mom worked, this restaurant my mom worked at was directly across the street from this apartment building. He used to go over there and work. He used to go over there and eat almost every day, every meal there. And I don't know, he just took an interest in me as being a curious kid. And I've always been super duper curious. That's probably my number one thing that's probably led me down the road of a lot of misery and a lot of success, is just being curious. But I remember 2 really distinct things that happened when I was a kid. My mom, one morning, went out of the apartment at 6:30 to go to work. And I was still in bed waiting to go to school. And I heard this scream, and I didn't know what it was. And I went outside, I ran outside. It was very cold, it was winter. And our car was parked out on the street. And she had a little Ford Maverick, a little brown Ford Maverick. I can see it right now. And someone stole the battery out of it. And the car wouldn't start, obviously. And she didn't have any money to buy a battery. And she had finally just hit her limit, and she just sat down on the curb and screamed and cried for about 5 minutes. And then she walked to work, about 2.5 miles to work in the freezing freaking cold. And people ask me, what drives you to be successful? The answer is nothing. I'm completely driven by not being poor. And from that day on, I just had a war on poverty. I really did. I hated it.
And how old are you when this happened?
I was about 12. I was just turned 13. I lied and said that I was 14. And I got a job at Mr. J's Pancake House bussing tables. And my first paycheck I got was for $70 for 2 weeks, I think, or something. I got some tips and stuff. But I remember I went to Trevathan's grocery store, and I bought $50 worth of groceries. And
brought it home to mom.
Probably the most proud moment of my entire life.
Really? Yeah. Even to today.
So
I see you getting emotional in that.
I started really, seeing what good could come from being financially successful. And then,
how did your mom react when you brought it home?
Oh, she was thrilled, but there were times that she wasn't thrilled. She
Sure.
came home one afternoon and there was an $800 phone bill. She had no money and was terrified. We were doing a little bit better financially. We were in a little nicer place to live. And there was an $800 phone bill because I had been on the phone at 14, negotiating, buying split tag clothing from brokers in New York that I'd found in the back of the New York Times, selling remnant Ralph Lauren polo stuff, and she's
the long distance charges were $800.
Right, and she was shaking when I got home, and I went into my bedroom, and between my bed, I wrote her a check for $4,000 because I had made like $12,000 bucks, but I didn't. If I had told her I was doing it, she would have been terrified that I was doing something wrong or illegal. Or
so you're selling remnant clothing, and you made $12,000 selling remnant clothing.
I made more than that. My senior year of high school, I made $88,000.
What?
And I made more than my principal. And they weren't going to let me graduate. I had great grades, but they weren't going to let me graduate because of attendance, because I was out making sales calls.
Hold on. I have to unpack all
this. Is a lot to. It's a lot.
I understand,
to
but I got to unpack all this stuff. I got to go back.
Sure.
So, abusive dad.
Yeah.
But charming. Yeah. And funny.
Yeah.
So you pulled the good out of that.
Yeah.
And tried to,
and none of the bad. I've never struck one of my children in my life. I've never struck any human.
Right.
You
learned what not to do.
I'm a very passive guy.
But you also took some good out of a bad situation. You were you were a minority in your junior high.
Yeah.
And you learned to be funny.
Yeah. As
a survival mechanism, and also treat everybody exactly the same.
Yeah.
And that served you for your whole life.
Yeah.
You get into your high school and junior high and high school, that pivotal time, and you see your mom walk to work in the bitter cold, and you have this defining moment.
Yeah.
That I'm at war now against that. Yeah. I'm at war against poverty and against a lack of choices and a lack of options and those types of things. So you begin to think in an enterprising way, probably different than your friends.
Completely different. And I don't know many people that think like I do. I wake up every morning, I can get the snot beat out of me one day. And when I go to bed at night, I might be sucking my thumb, but I wake up in the morning.
You're ready to go.
I'm ready to go. And I'm super curious of everything that's new and different and trends. And, I'm always trying to figure out, where the puck's going to be next.
So it's war against poverty, this mindset, you decide to become enterprising, and in school, you start trying things.
Yeah.
And you get kicked out of school a couple times because you're trying
I had a paint contracting company at the same time. I had two 40-year-old men working full-time for me when I was in high school.
Okay, so you do all these different entrepreneurial things in high school.
Yeah.
Any of your friends doing these things?
No. I always carried one or two of them along with me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a car. Couldn't drive. Wasn't old enough to drive when I really first started in business. I was only 15 when I had the paint contracting company, and I had to have a partner who had a car. So
you didn't have money.
My buddy would drive me around.
You didn't have money. You didn't have contacts. You just had curiosity.
Yeah.
And you had a burning desire.
And I had no fear. So for whatever reason.
Why did you not have fear?
I would knock on doors. The only reason the guys were painting houses for me and not for themselves is because they were too afraid to knock on a door and sell a job. But I would get off school at like 2:30 in the afternoon, and from 2:30 until dark, hey, notice your paint's all cracked on your house. Yeah, I'm a kid that runs a painting company, and I'm a cute little kid, and people like enterprising, hustling, cute kids. And I said, I got these guys who are experienced painters, and we'll paint your house for this much money, and I can get started tomorrow. You want to get started then or right now? And I could go out a couple afternoons a week and drum up all the business we needed. I'd have my buddy drive me along. I'd spot something. I'd say, okay, stop. And I'd get out, knock on the door, and make my little pitch. And we cleaned gutters, and we did all sorts of stuff, but mostly painting. And I started making pretty good money with that. And I started.
What'd you do with all this money in high school? You made $88,000 in high school.
Yeah.
You make more than
made more than the principal of high school.
The principal of high school.
Quite a lot more. Yeah.
And
back then, I think my principal made $41,000.
$41,000.
I lapped him.
Yeah. You lapped them, and you rung up this big bill. Mom wasn't happy with the long distance bill back in the days of long distance.
Oh yeah.
And you were able to just cut her a check for $4,000. What'd she say when you cut her that check?
She really didn't. She thought I was doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
She really did. She didn't understand.
You had to explain something.
So I had to sit down and explain, and she still didn't understand it.
Really?
I mean, the first year that I made a lot of money, I was only 20. I made $800,000 that year. And
hold on, we got to get to that. We'll
get
get
to that.
We'll get to that. But
when I came home that year for Christmas,
yes,
with somebody driving a truck behind me full of presents,
right?
She pulled me over in a room and explained to me that I need to stop all this foolishness and get a good job and take care of my family. She really did. She still never understood really.
Is your mom still around?
No, she passed a couple years ago.
Sorry
She never really understood what I did or how I did it, or she couldn't. Her brain wouldn't allow that. It would just wasn't in her DNA to understand it.
Was it fun for you to take care of her whole life?
Yeah. I bought her house. I get to go to heaven automatically. It's like a Southern thing.
Yes.
It's like Elvis. If you buy your mom a house, you get a pass. You do all kinds of awful things. You're like, he bought his mom a house. So I bought her a dream house, and that was super duper cool. There's a good story with that too.
Yeah.
I got loads of stories.
We get out of you graduate high school, and there was like some controversy about graduation.
I didn't graduate.
What?
No, I quit 2 weeks before graduation.
What? Why?
Because they pulled me in the principal's office because my attendance, I'd missed too many days, the mandatory
you were working
attendance thing, even though I had good grades. I always made A's on all tests, but I didn't do homework really well. So I'd end up with a C, C+, B-. And I had the grades to pass, but they just weren't going to let me walk because of attendance. And I was going to come back for summer school, which was going to cut into work. And I'm like, you know what? So I asked my principal, let me ask you a question. How much money you make last year? Because they were giving me good counsel. And I'm not by any means, it was one of the dumbest things I ever did. I was stupid. You get pretty full of yourself when you can do those things. And
he told you.
Yeah. And I said, well, I think I doubled that. So I think I'm going to be okay. So you can go ahead.
What'd he say?
Keep that. And he was actually a very nice guy.
Yeah.
And was like, look, these are the rules. I don't make the rules. I get it, and yeah. I played poker too.
Paducah.
Not then, not like you, but I played poker. I used to.
In high school?
I think when I left high school, my shop teacher owed me $300-400 I never got. I used to play poker against my shop teacher.
Wow.
We do all kinds of stuff. I was an abnormally smart kid, like a street smart kid. I was never like, I was a lousy student go to class, sit in class, listen.
Follow the rules.
Homework was the bane of my existence.
Did you learn anything from high school that you can think of?
I learned to sew.
You know what's funny?
I sew.
Do you sew?
Would you think that?
You sew? You're a sewer?
I like to sew. I took home ec because I wanted to meet all the girls.
So you learned to sew.
I learned to sew. I learned
and you
to cook.
Still do?
I'm a great cook. I've got a sewing machine on my kitchen table right now.
So home ec.
Yeah, I took home ec, and I learned, my favorite class was, I liked history and I liked civics.
Huh.
So I learned a lot about, it used to be called civics. I don't know what they call it now, government or whatever. So I learned a lot about government. I never went to government, but I liked.
You know what was my most useful class? Typing.
Really?
Learning how to type.
I can't type still. I'm hunt and peck.
No, I learned how to. I'm so glad I learned how to. Yeah. I can type as fast as I can think.
I tried it and I think I quit it. I think I quit it because I sucked at it so
much. Most useful.
Yeah.
Of all the stuff. I mean, I knew I was never going to use algebra and geometry and all that stuff. But typing.
I was an incredibly social.
You learned how to sew and cook. I learned how to type. That was our high school.
Insanely social in high school. Like I was everybody's buddy. And I had friends that lived social. I had friends that lived in the bad side of town, and I had friends that were the richest kids in town. I dated a doctor's daughter and I dated a stripper's daughter. Wow. So I did both, I'm not going to tell you which one was more fun.
I won't ask. So, you get out, you finish your high school experience.
Yeah.
What happens next? Where do you go? You got all these ventures going on. You're making money.
I can tell you now, cause there's nothing. I started selling drugs.
Really?
Yeah. So I got into, a buddy of mine introduced me to cocaine. I liked it a lot.
No way.
I started selling it for about 3 months. I sold cocaine.
No way.
Sold it, did it, just went all the way down the rabbit hole of that. I think people like me, you tend to have addictive personalities, and, but only for 3 months.
Yep.
And, but I was terrified So I moved to, one night, my girlfriend and I, who became my wife, I said, I got to get out of here. I'm going to get in trouble and I need to get away from all this and go. Where do you want to go? Canada. So I got in a car 3 days after my brother took his life. I had a brother that took his own life. But 3 days after that, we got in the car and we moved to Canada. And I tried to work in Canada. They wouldn't let me work. So I went back down to Detroit, where we had relatives that had moved there back in the Great Depression, distant relatives. And I had a little bit of support system there, and I got a job selling cars.
All right. Before we get into cars, you have this habit of glossing over monumental things.
Yeah,
Your brother took his life.
he did.
What was that like?
It was horrifying. I
Can't even imagine.
I was 18 years old. He took his life just a few days after my 18th birthday. And he was the shit together one. You know, he was the brother he was the kid that had it all together.
Older brother?
Older brother. He was a riverboat mechanic. He worked on big riverboats. He made great money. A beautiful family. He was a Vietnam vet that had, done some drugs in Vietnam and had some, because a lot of those guys came back addicted to heroin, and I don't know if that's what drove his decision. None of us really know. And he went to work one morning and shot himself in the head, and kind of suspicious circumstances, but you always want to believe that it's not what it probably is.
Yeah.
And it was really hard on my mom, and I think I largely left to escape some of those memories, right? But we went to, it was a really weird time, and so we went to Detroit, and I sold cars.
I've had a few friends that have lost siblings in similar situation, and the healing journey of that is pretty long. Like to really kind of close that hole. There's like a hole there.
We weren't super close because he was so much older than me. I was like the accident at the end, right? So he was about 20 years older than me. He's 10 years older than my sister. My sister's 10 years older than me. They were super close. So it was devastating for her. It was devastating for my mother, obviously.
Yeah.
And because he was the golden child. Danny boy. He was the golden child, right? My sister was rambunctious and got in a lot of trouble, and I was unpredictable, and
Did this shape any part of your life?
I don't know. I never really did drugs again. I didn't use marijuana until it was legalized.
Was that part of your decision, do you think?
Yeah. I think a lot of it was. I was just terrified of all illicit drugs. After that experience and my brother's experience, I was just terrified of any kind of illicit drug, and I still don't do drugs. I'll eat little pot gummies to sleep sometimes, but that's about it. I don't do anything else, and I don't drink. My stepdad was an alcoholic, so I don't really drink much. I drink a little bit here and there. I've just seen substance tear people's life up pretty hard, so I think I learned some of that. So yeah.
All right. So you end up coming back to Detroit.
Yeah. I sold Pontiacs at Quality Pontiac in Pontiac, Michigan. It was a pretty easy job.
Wow.
I was selling mostly to people who worked at the Pontiac plant.
Sure.
Weirdly enough. But I learned a ton about business and selling.
How did you shift from entrepreneurial, knocking on doors, selling remaindered Ralph Lauren stuff, having a paint contracting business, cleaning out gutters, to selling cars?
Well, the bridge in there was cocaine. So I kind of
walked away from all that.
I lost everything and just blew my businesses up, blew everything.
So you know what?
up.
I'm just going to go sell.
And I just went, and I knew I could sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started selling cars in Detroit, and I didn't know if I was going to keep doing that or not. And a month after I started, my wife found out she was pregnant with twins.
Wow. So
I had I'm 19 years old.
You got married at 19?
I got married at 18.
18?
Yeah. And so I'm 19 years old. I got twins on the way, and I hustled like crazy. And I got to where I was making 10 grand a month selling cars, which was
back when 10 grand a month was a lot.
As a guy without a high school diploma, and not much on the ball, and nothing to invest. And, what are you going to do? Right. And so I did that. And then as we got closer to the kids being born, my parents and her parents wanted us closer to home. And so we moved down to this little town called Cape Girardeau, Missouri, the home of Rush Limbaugh.
Okay.
And I know what I was going to do, but I want to be closer to home. And we were walking through the mall one day, and they had this thing set in the middle of the mall, this push cart. And those didn't exist before. And I said, rent this, start a business.
Push cart.
Like a kiosk in a mall or a little cart in a mall. Yeah. Back then they were carts. They were like cute little quaint carts. And I rented one, and I had seen an ad that I found out years later was written by my friend Dan Kennedy for Chain by the Inch. And it was a jewelry business opportunity. So I saved up, I think $700 or $800, and I bought this jewelry kit, and I rented this little cart in the mall. And the first week that we were open, we made $6,000. It was crazy.
And was it consistent?
Yeah, it was real consistent. I opened 42 of those.
42.
I had 42 jewelry stores before I was old enough to legally buy beer.
42. So you just
I didn't know,
and you
I was too stupid to know you couldn't do that.
You know what's funny? I will tell you, one of my superpowers, it seems like it's one of yours too, is I have a higher than average awareness.
Yeah. Pattern recognition.
I see stuff that other people don't see. How many people walk past that rent me push cart and never had a single thought?
Right.
And wouldn't ever even think to find a jewelry thing in order to be able to put into it, let alone scale it. Some people would just get that one.
Oh, as soon as I open one, and
they would just get the one, and they make their $6,000 and like, oh, this is great,
right?
But they wouldn't think of 42 of them.
Right.
So how much you make with 42 of them?
$800,000.
$800,000.
The year I was 20.
20 years old.
I netted 800 on about $4 million. Yeah. The next year I was bankrupt.
What?
Next year I was completely broke.
So how did this happen?
Well, in retail, they have this stuff called shrinkage
and
employee theft and mismanagement and all sorts of things. I didn't know how to run a business, man. I just knew how to sell crap. So I was being stolen from by everyone who touched the process, to the point that we went, I made a really bad deal. That was a good deal, bad deal. I didn't open 42 of those. I opened, it was about half, probably 21 of them. And then I made a deal with Sears, where I went into every Sears store in my region. It was about 21 Sears stores in the Midwest. And I opened a vendor arrangement inside Sears. So about half our stores were inside Sears, and kind of like a merchant account now. Sears handled the money, right? So we did this big Christmas season, and at the end of the year, Sears owed us about $800,000 or $900,000, and they said, "Okay, well that was great. So now we're going to hold on this money for a while to see if there's any refunds, and when we determine there's not, then we'll give it to you." And they held the money for like 7 months. And I couldn't stand the cash flow. And I'd gotten just ripped off everywhere else because we weren't paying attention. We were just, let me open them as fast as I can, and the money will just come in, And
so if you're like me at 20 years old,
learned a pretty big lesson.
You spent most of that 800 on something, or did you say?
Oh, no, I spent all of it.
Yeah.
I spent all of it. I had lots of friends.
What did you spend 800 on?
Oh, everything. Cars, stuff that has no intrinsic value at the end.
Everything that depreciates.
Everything that depreciates, especially like loading up a group full of friends and flying to Jamaica for a weekend, and doing all kinds of crazy, stupid stuff that being a big shot.
20-year-olds
being a big wheel
would do.
Yeah, being a big wheel. Buying fur coats for my wife and taking trips to going to casinos and stuff once I was old enough to do that.
Yeah.
And just being dumb, man. And
so you this whole situation happens, you've filed bankruptcy. Or do you file bankruptcy, or you just went broke?
Yeah, I filed bankruptcy.
Okay. So you filed bankruptcy.
It's the only time I ever did.
Right.
I went broke 2 more times, but I never filed bankruptcy
right.
the other two.
Yeah. I should have. Everybody told me I should have.
Oh, the last one I really should have.
But I never did. And paid everybody, it took
Same
some
here.
time, but that was, 22 years ago.
Yeah, mine was about 16 years ago. Same.
Bottom.
Yeah.
Oof,
Yeah.
It was rough. People tell you, better to have it and lost than not have it at all. And I disagree.
I completely disagree. It's absolutely miserable.
It's the worst.
Because then
the guy that used to have
right?
money.
Then you know, right?
And also, getting to zero is no problem. No problem.
Bull.
But going below zero.
I was
so far below
I've been
zero.
3 million below.
Yeah.
I had a
1.8.
party. I had a party. I had a Perry's Broke party. Huge party the day that I hit zero.
Let's get to the Perry's Broke
Okay.
party. We'll get there in this chronology,
Yeah.
but this is interesting for me. So you go broke.
Yeah.
Then what do you do?
Sucked my thumb for a while, and I determined I'm never going to have another employee. And God, I haven't talked about this stuff in years. So I determined I was never going to have another employee as long as I lived. And I might get my chronology or months or years off. So.
Doesn't matter.
But so I just didn't do anything for like 6 months.
How?
Until we couldn't pay the rent.
Oh,
I mean, it was bad. We didn't have any food left. So my ex-wife had a bunch of relatives in West Virginia. So they're very family tight. So we decided we're going to go to West Virginia and spend a couple of weeks and visit because we can eat for free. Right. And when the family finds out like that, because we were high flying, then they find out we're busted. Right. And they were really nice, really gracious. And her family worked in the coal mine business, which that's what you do there. You coal mine, moonshine, or move on down the line. That's your three choices. So they decided they were going to get me a job driving a coal truck. This is the most dangerous job just about in America. You're driving these really windy roads around West Virginia where the just falls off the mountains, and you get paid so much a load. So they all drive super fast because you're getting paid so much per load of coal, but you can make good money. And that was going to be my lot in life. Right. And we decided we're going to do it because there's not much choice. And we're driving back through, back to home. We were driving from Western Kentucky from West Virginia. And we went through Knoxville, Tennessee area, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, all that. And I said, well, we're probably not going to get another vacation again for 100 years. So why don't we go into Gatlinburg? I've never been to Gatlinburg. And let's look around and eat some lunch or something and head on our way. So we go into Gatlinburg, and I walk down the street in Gatlinburg, and everywhere I look, there's an airbrush artist spray printing T-shirts. I'm like, that looks interesting. These guys, they're busy and it's expensive. And I start talking to them about how the business works. And basically the way the business works is the airbrush artist sets out front, and they give a percentage of their money to the T-shirt shop. The T-shirt shop sells the T-shirts, and that's the deal. And I started doing the math on it, and I was like, these guys are making $1,000, $2,000 a day. This is actually real money, and there's no employees needed. I do it all by myself. The only problem is I don't know how to do any of this. So we went to lunch. Well, I've been there 2 hours, went to lunch, and I told my wife, I said, how much money we got? I think we had $300 and some to our name. Right. And we hadn't paid rent at home, which eventually all of our stuff got seized. We lost everything because we just didn't go back, because I decided I was going to stay in Gatlinburg, Tennessee until I learned how to airbrush T-shirts. And I did. And it was hilarious.
Could you airbrush a T-shirt today?
You damn right I can.
Really?
Faster than anybody you've ever seen. Yeah, I'm really actually pretty good at it.
Wow.
But I begged and pleaded for somebody to teach me, and I ended up working for free in a T-shirt shop so that when there were no customers in the T-shirt shop, they would let me use the airbrush. And I taught myself, and for the most part. And I've tried to teach other people. It's practically impossible. It's really hard to learn. And but I worked in a restaurant during the day. I worked T-shirt shop at night. I didn't make any money at the T-shirt shop because it's a bad T-shirt shop, but I was learning. And then somebody said, you really are we'd sold jewelry on a military base before, so we knew about dealing with military bases. And somebody said, they kill it on the military bases. So I called up. It was toward the end of the season because I couldn't get a job because the season was about up. So I called up the T-shirt shop, Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I said, hi, this is Perry, and I'm an airbrush artist in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And, I'm interviewing T-shirt shops right now to decide where I'm going to go at the end of the season, because we make the shop so much money, and we're very in demand. And, I didn't have any equipment. I didn't have anything. So lady on the T-shirt shop was really interested. She said, well, how does it work? And I said, well, I provide the artwork, and I get that. I give you a share of that, you with the T-shirts. And And she said, and I was still trying to figure out how I was going to get the equipment. And she said, well, what about the equipment? I said, well, what kind of equipment do you have? And she said, oh, we don't have any equipment. I said, oh, well, then probably wouldn't work out if you don't have the equipment. So what all would I need? So I gave her a list of equipment. She bought all the equipment. Here we go, trekking across country again with $300-400 in our pocket. And I get there, and that year I think I made $200,000.
Wow.
Airbrushing t-shirts. And we were back at it.
You're back.
We're back, and I opened handbag stores and jewelry stores again, and did a much better job that time at the retail thing.
I have a story that's similar in my network marketing journey, right? I'm struggling. The company's struggling a bit. I'm struggling. And back then we used to run ads in the local newspaper in order to be able to generate leads and book appointments from those ads. And Minneapolis, where I lived, was kind of saturated. There's like 50, 60 ads every single week in the help wanted section. And I had gone to Nashville to a wedding, and I ran an ad while I was there, and I was the only one. It was like virgin territory.
Blue ocean.
I got like 400 phone calls.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is unbelievable. So, and we were like, I was just making just enough money to be broke.
Be appropriately broke.
Yes. And we had this little, we lived in a condo. My wife was pregnant. We had a little one already, and wife was pregnant, and we're behind on everything. And I just said, you know what? Let's go to Nashville as a family for the summer. We'll go for like 90 days. We'll work. I'll build a team down there, and then we'll come back. Mm-hmm. So she said, okay, we got to try something.
Yeah, right.
So I just walked away and had to negotiate like hard to figure out an apartment down there.
God bless her for that. That's a good
yeah,
thing.
And we drove our mint green Pontiac 6000 down there with a little U-Haul and started a little business down there. Got some stuff going, recruited some people. Again, not enough. And I, like you, walked away. Mm-hmm. I emotionally walked away from Minneapolis during this because I couldn't focus on my bills. I didn't even forward the mail, nothing,
Don't want to know.
Don't want to know. And we had this little condo. If you can imagine a condominium that had a one-car garage. And when you walked in, it was 7 levels of one room per level.
Oh, wow.
So you go down half, 6 steps to the lower thing that would walk out the back, 6 steps up to a little living room, 6 steps up to the kitchen that was over the garage, 6 steps, all the way up. And when we're done, I've ignored everything. And we're driving back. Her sister had flown down and was going to drive back separate with them. They're going to follow behind. And I was going to take the U-Haul, go up and get a head start on unpacking and stuff.
Yeah.
So I get up there in August and it's about 88 degrees and humid. And I get to our condo and the sun's just starting to come down. And what I didn't know is my bank accounts had been closed. The electricity had been turned off. And for over 30 days in the heat.
Refrigerator's funky.
When I walked in, I got hit in the face with the smell that I can smell it to this moment. It was like you could put your fingers on the walls and it was that bad. Mm-hmm. And I never felt like more of a loser, bad provider in my life in that moment. And I called my brother and I said, will you come help me? Because I got to figure out some way because the family's coming back tomorrow and, I got to clean this thing out. And he agreed to come over. And I want you to imagine there's a little deck in the kitchen area overlooking the garage. And I put 2 garbage cans underneath and I opened up that refrigerator and the freezer that was filled with meat, rotted, stinking, dripping
maggots. I'm sure.
Holding my breath, carrying them, dripping across this deck, dropping them in, and going back and forth, doing this thing, retching while I'm doing it. And I remember, like, maybe my second trip, I said, you know what? I've had enough. So you know what I did? I went back to the freezer and I stuck my head all the way in and I went, because I wanted to remember it.
Neurotransmitters fired off, didn't they?
And I could smell it today.
Yeah.
I could tell you exactly what that smelled and tasted like. I said, this is my day. That is enough is enough.
Failure smells like.
Yes, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing it again. And that moment, because I've been kind of trying to get lucky in network marketing up until that point, doing enough, trying to look for an angle, trying to, be, and I just decided I'm done. I'm done with that. I'm going to the next level now. And it changed my life, having all that humiliation, all that dripping, rotted nonsense.
I think people discount that too much, right? I think I never learned anything in my life from being successful.
Nothing?
I don't think so. I learned damn near everything I've learned in my life from just getting the snot beat out of me. And remember, and try not to do that too many more times before you get to the point. I certainly went back to the well on mistakes a lot, but I learned a lot of. I tell people now, ask me what to do. I don't know. I can tell you a lot of stuff not to do. I know a whole bunch of things that won't work.
Yeah.
So, my life more is a set of rules of stuff that doesn't work and try to remember.
Tried that. Yeah.
Try to remember that they don't work and, just take another angle. I don't know if that angle is going to work or not, but I already know that one ain't right. So, can go there.
Well, I want to get into marketing and I want to get into artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
You've been deep diving on artificial intelligence. But before we get into that, I'm really looking forward to that because you're really, really smart about that topic in particular, or those topics in particular. How many different iterations? Because now you're
oh my gosh. So I went through
how many different businesses, how many different ventures,
give you the short form of it. I did everything. I was just hustling like you were talking about. I was airbrushing. I did hypnosis seminars because I watched a guy do one and I decided I could do it. And guess what? I pulled it off and nobody ever knew that I didn't know what I was doing. Just stupid stuff like that. I sold hot dogs for a while. We had one car and I was driving a taxi. We moved to Orlando, Florida. And I was driving a taxi and we had one car. My wife had the car and I had the taxi. And I would rent the taxi, by the way. So I came home one after and I said, hey, can I borrow your car? And she said, sure. And I came back a few hours later and I was pulling a hot dog cart behind a taxi. And she said, where's my car? And I said, well,
you sold the car.
Kind of traded it for a hot dog cart.
You traded it for magic beans.
Our only car.
Like beans in the beanstalk.
Yeah. And for the first week or so I made no money. And then I figured out that if I was sitting on the side of Sand Lake Road in Orlando, and this became famous, right? Just weird pattern recognition again. So I'm sitting in front of Sand Lake Road and a group of girls and four girls in the Jeep in bikinis had been to the beach or whatever. They came up and they, got hot dogs and I'm talking to them and chatting them up. And all of a sudden here comes all these pickup trucks of these construction workers and I'm busy.
Blue-eyed marketing.
Bikini hot dog cart. So I started hiring bikini girls to work the hot dog cart and I went $1,000, $2,000 a day on the side of the road. And then we started moving the hot dog cart at night to be in front of the nightclubs when everybody come out of the nightclubs drunk. And we're making $10,000 a week selling hot dogs and just crap like that.
How many times did you make $10,000 a week?
A lot.
How many different ventures?
A lot, and I was always doing that so that I could do the next thing, so that I could do the next thing. I've always worked in like this stair-steppy kind of, even now, even when I start a new business now, I don't put a lot of money in it. I got a rule against it because every time I've done that, I've failed. If I've started it like I was broke, I've always come out. But if I started it like I had a lot of money to invest, I've always failed. Maybe that's a personality flaw of my own, but yeah, so did that. And then the bigger breakthroughs, right, were I eventually went into manufacturing because I met a guy that really, really inspired me to be a manufacturer. So I manufactured food products. I roasted coffee. I made spices and dip mixes and foods, and eventually bath and body products and African hair care products. And I bought a paint company, and I really enjoy manufacturing. I really like it a lot. I own 2 manufacturing companies now. And so I manufactured. I learned to import from China. I lived in China for a year. I met a guy that, again, inspired me, who lives here now. He's almost a billionaire, and taught me the import business. So I lived in Guangzhou, China, which is an awful place to live, but I had to learn. So I did that. And I was in the midst of all that stuff when the buzz started coming out about this thing called the internet. And Jeff Bezos had started Amazon a year before, and he was losing tons of money. And I don't know. I just instantly saw it. Like I saw the AI thing, just clear as a bell. This is what's about to happen. And I sold everything. I completely jumped out. I sold everything else I owned. I went headstrong into the internet. I bought dryraceboard.com and rubberstamps.com and a bunch of other .com e-com properties, and did really well with it, and learned that business really, really, really well. I was really successful at it. And one of the businesses that I had, there were 13 different divisions of that company. I was doing around $3 million a month, taking about $1 million to the bottom. And one of those divisions was a dietary supplement company. And again, in a business I shouldn't have been in, much more regulatory than I was prepared for. I was cutting all kinds of corners and doing all kinds of things. I almost went to jail. And they seized everything I had. The government seized everything.
Because of ingredient claims?
Claims, yeah. And it wasn't a federal thing. It was a state thing. I was in the state of Tennessee. They're kind of, from recent news, pretty regressive state. And no offense against Tennessee. I love people from Tennessee. I just don't care for the state much. But yeah, they took everything and left me with $3 million of the debt. So one day, I had $8 million in cash in the bank. I owned 3 houses, 7 or 8 cars. 3 days later, I was living in my sister's spare bedroom, driving her like 12-year-old Bronco that she didn't drive anymore because I'd given her a Jaguar, right? And so yeah, it's just bad juju. So I lost everything. And a guy named Ryan Dice called me.
Was this the last time you lost everything?
Yeah. So this was 16 years ago now. And Ryan Dice called me, who had met me through some other people. He knew me to be good at what I did. And he said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, my phone's not ringing and I'm $3 million in debt. And I don't."
That was the first around then, somewhere in that range. It was the first time I heard about you.
Yeah. Because we did a product with, I was Mr. X. We wouldn't put my name on the product because we didn't know, what the press.
Maybe 12 years ago, somewhere. It's kind of the first time I heard about you as this you're a marketing guy.
Yeah.
You kind of like this, really smart, cutting edge, always paying attention to what's happening inside of marketing.
Yeah.
And you put the boom and bust behind you.
Yeah.
Back then, say, okay, well, I'm done with that.
Yeah. Well, it might happen tomorrow, but I don't think so. I think I'm okay now. I've had some really good cash infusions and some exits that have happened and some things that have happened. I learned to be a better businessman. I'm still not a good businessman. I'm a terrible businessman.
Really?
As businessmen go, I'm not a great businessman. I always have to have somebody.
You're a good marketer.
I have to have somebody else around to run the business, but I got smart enough to appreciate the value of that.
You consider yourself like a strategist / marketer?
Yeah. And I like systems. I like technology. Everything, I didn't realize until this AI thing that everything I did, I entered it. I had timing that was just impeccable.
Because of awareness again. Pattern recognition.
Yeah. It was, I couldn't fail in the online business because internet usage was climbing at 500% a year. How are you going to fail? All you got to do is just be there, right? When I went into retail, right, normally to have a store in a mall cost you $500,000. I got in one for $700 because of a new thing that you could do, right? When I got into manufacturing, I was buying manufacturing equipment from China for 10 cents on the dollar. What would it cost here? So $1 million plant for somebody else cost me $100,000. I was able to enter a really difficult manufacturing business for 10 cents on the dollar what my competition was paying. So everything that I did along the way, even going into, online, it really didn't cost a lot. I learned how to code myself. I spent a year every night, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, my eyes is bleeding, learning how to code web pages that you don't have to do no more. Right. But I just did that thing that I think other people wouldn't have done. I can kind of recognize the thing, and then I'll tend to do the thing that other people usually aren't willing to do.
I want to break into 3 categories. The first is, what are the business and marketing lessons that you've learned? Like I've heard a few lessons
Sure.
in this conversation. One is to pull the best out of every situation.
Sure.
You pull the good and learn from the bad.
Yeah.
And
Hopefully.
try not to repeat it.
I'd love to say I always do that, but I certainly don't.
But second was pattern recognition.
I think pattern recognition's huge.
Yes.
But taking action on that recognition.
Right. And awareness and being willing to take a leap inside of that. A third lesson I heard was, don't invest a lot of money in starting a business. Nope. Start like you're broke.
Yep.
Like people in network marketing.
My buddy Damon John wrote that book, Power of Broke. It's actually a pretty good book.
The Power of Broke.
It's good.
No,
Damon's a good dude.
Yeah, for sure. So act like you're broke when you're starting a business. You don't have to invest a lot of money. Right. I mean, some people do, and they're successful with that. But in our scrappy entrepreneurial world, I've had the same thing. Just start and grow.
I reserve my capital for scale. Like once I've proven that, like for instance, if I were recruiting people and I had a particular effort that was, if a person was worth $300 or I don't know your business very well, but if a person was worth, say I'm going to make potentially $300 from recruiting someone, I'm going to try 87 ways to do that for $200. Right. And once I find one way that I can do that for $200 and get back $300, I call it like a slot machine. You drop a quarter and a top and a dollar falls out. Well, what do you want to do next? Well, you want a ton of quarters. Right. So now I'll fund that to the wall. Once I know
once you prove it.
Yeah. Once you have a proof of concept. And if you look at the companies in Silicon Valley now, they don't get those big multi-million-dollar fundings like they used to. They get 50 grand or 20 grand or 30 grand.
See what you can do with it.
Go hire a couple of coders, show us a minimum viable product, get a few users, see if anybody likes it. Then we'll back up the truck.
Right.
After that, I don't take investors. I use my own money for everything. I don't like investors.
What are the kind of lessons and another way to say it, maybe life rules?
Well, for me, there are only a few. Like life, like bites size pieces are. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Why? Explain it.
Don't ever take advantage of your leverage over somebody just because you can, because you never know, right? I've got a really long career in this business compared to most people in this business. There's a lot of people. I've seen hundreds of gurus in the business come and go since I started, and usually it's because they were kind of they're going to skin the sheep instead of trim off a little wool, right? Old Jewish man taught me that lesson years ago. But for me, that's a big one. Partnerships are critically important to me. I'm worthless without a partner. And I know a lot of people aren't. A lot of people want to be totally solo, and that's good for you. I mean, like you, for instance, you have a partner.
Well, my wife.
Yeah.
But that's it.
But you have an extraordinary partner.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have an extraordinary partner that does a lot of things you probably wouldn't do very well. None of us do everything. I've
been, previous to what I do now,
you may be totally business savvy. I don't know.
No, I'm a good strategist, and I'm good at delivering content. I'm more a teacher than anything else.
Yeah.
But I've had bad experiences with partners in the past.
Me too.
Which made me feel like, I don't want somebody else coming in and stab me in the back like I've had happen.
I have too, but I think you just got to get back on the pony. When you stop trusting, it's like in love, right? You can't be in love without being in trust. It's impossible, right? And same's true with a business person. I think if you don't trust your partner, you got to kind of be vulnerable to them without being stupid, right? But I want to know people a good long while. One of my partners now, Chad's a great partner, but Chad and I didn't work together for 3 years. if he needed something, he'd call me. If I needed something, I'd call him. We were friends, you know, da, 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 da. And I waited a long time, you know, before we entered. But I know there's a lot of stuff that I don't do well. So, and like when I buy a business, I invest into buying businesses now a lot. And I need somebody that operates the business very well, but doesn't sell it very well. And that's a great partner.
You know, what's funny is like the network marketing world, everybody's solopreneurs, right? Not a lot of employees. So the way people utilize quote unquote partnerships is they'll be good at something.
Yeah.
And they'll find if they have a need, they'll find somebody in their team, or they'll recruit to that need.
Yeah.
And they'll put that person into their team and fill that hole.
Yeah.
Whether it's organization or, you know, particular skill set or whatever. So that's how they kind of mastermind around that.
Some people are great. Very few people are good at everything because your brain is usually left brain or right brain. Very few people kind of straddle that. You know, you don't see too many people that straddle that. So,
or certain strengths, you know, that whole strengths finders thing is accurate. I mean, the strengths that you have are different than somebody else. You should double down on your strengths instead of worrying about your weaknesses. Recruit or get partners around your weaknesses.
I'm definitely a hunter, right? But it takes farmers to run a business. You know, a hunter can go out and clear the land and find the plot and all that, but they're probably not gonna be very good at plowing the fields and steadily planting every week and harvesting. So I've made a bunch of analogies about us. You know, I'm a good legislator, but I'm a terrible enforcer.
Okay.
You know, because I let people get away with murder until I just don't want to know them anymore. You know, I'm pretty passive aggressive about that sort of stuff. So the best thing for me to do is just to have an operations partner, and I just defer 100% operations to them. And I say, okay, here's what I think we should try next, and let's see what happens with this. Can we execute on that? Yeah. And then if I'm right, I pat myself on the back, and if I'm wrong, I'm like, okay, I was wrong. It's my responsibility, and I'm willing to take a calculated risk to do it. And those have probably been really good. And with partners, I have another saying. I said,
go ahead.
if you got to split a nickel, always give them 3 cents, because it's not going to hurt you. And as long as the partner feels like they're coming out a little bit better than you are, it's usually a really good partnership that lasts a long time.
And they never start feeling entitled, even though you ended up giving them a little extra.
Sure. All the time.
They don't start asking for a little bit more
all the time.
And you're still okay.
Sometimes they just take it, and those partnerships blow up. And when they do, they do. But I've got 11 businesses right now, partners in every one. I don't have a single thing that I own independently. And 5 of those I own a minority share in, which I actually prefer. I prefer a minority ownership, especially now at my age. You know, I'm getting a little older.
Your age.
Well, I'm not as old as you, but
stop it. Your age. What in the world?
But no, I really do. I like being a minority partner because I can do what I do best.
What other kind of business life lessons stand out?
Oh my gosh.
What are your rules, you know, that you won't violate now with some wisdom and maturity and age?
Yeah, I think I gave you most all of them. There ain't that many, you know. Anytime I feel like I've got a lot of money and I want to go invest, I really self-check myself because I'm about to screw up. I bought conventions.com for $440,000 2 weeks before COVID. You know why? Because I happened to have $440,000 laying around, you know, because I just done a big exit. I'm like, you know, what the hell, right? And it'll make money, but it'll probably be the last thing that I have that makes money that's in my stable right now, right?
Crazy.
Stuff that I started for no money. You know, I started an event this last few weeks ago that I just had an idea one day. So I want to bang out a sales letter and do an event on AI, and you know, probably make close to $1 million on that event.
Sure.
So it's like I haven't made anywhere near $1 million on conventions.com. It's like, you know, I didn't spend $10 on this other thing, you know? So it's like, you never know what it's going to be. But for me, it's always been something that's, it's always been something that I didn't spend a lot of money on. And when I go back and really analyze, and I've tried to analyze, like, where did I win? Where did I lose? And it's 100% of the time, it's been about timing. I've had not 99%, 100% of the time. I've recognized a thing and executed on it at just the right time. Because when you get the wind at your back, like this AI event, everybody's talking about AI right now. And I've been on AI for 3.5 years now. It's a long time. So I had a particular, block of knowledge that other people didn't have. And just the buzz around it is so high, we put 400 and odd people in a room at $1,000 a piece. When I normally would have, if I promoted another event on copywriting or e-commerce, I'd have got 100 people, it just happened to have the wind to its back. And now I'm booked to do those in Central America and South America and Asia and all over the place. Cause I was able to successfully pull it off.
Well, we're going to get to AI in a minute, but before we do that, your marketing journey, you've worked with everybody. Seems like, I mean, everybody seems to know you, and you've worked with a lot of the big known people in the marketing world. And
Frank Kern, Jay Abraham, Dan Kennedy, Bill Glazer, late great Clayton Makepeace. Some names people wouldn't know that outside the business, but yeah, I've worked with most of those people. And a lot of times I didn't get anything from it. I just did it to get to work with those people. Sometimes they were very generous, sometimes not so much.
Right.
But I always just tried to serve and normally came out pretty good in the vast majority of them. Kevin Nations, anybody here? And I could name, I don't want to leave anybody out, but there's 100 more, that I've been able to, work with and know. And I do kind of know everybody in the industry on a first name basis. It's been fun, but I've never screwed anybody over.
Right.
I've never screwed a single human. I've lost a lot of money in deals where I should have said, hey dude, we lost $100,000. And instead I just said, you know what, this didn't work out. Sorry, thanks. And I just ate it, cause I'd rather do that than hurt a future relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this marketing journey, what have you seen as far as the changes in the marketing landscape? And what's worked in the past, what's still working, what will always work? What are the universals?
That's the better question. That's what I was going to say. The better question is what hasn't changed.
All right. What hasn't changed?
Because a lot has changed, but for the most part, they're just mechanisms, right? Even if you look at e-commerce in the last couple of years has come into its own, but the first 10 years of e-commerce, there was no net gain. It just killed mail order. So mail order was about 7% of retail, and it took e-commerce 10 years to get to 7% of retail. And basically mail order went to 0% of retail. It didn't, it wasn't this big revolutionary thing. That's went on to surpass that now, but it's still only about 20% of all retail. I heard somebody say the other day that Amazon is 5% of global retail. That's it. And you think of Amazon as the biggest thing in the world. They're 5% of global retail. So I think, human behavior hasn't changed. There are generational, cultural changes, that to some extent entrepreneurship has been villainized as, evil, but it always has been. My mom, I remember my mom and my grandmother, if somebody did really well in the family, well, I think they're uppity now, it was never, wow, I'm so proud of them. I'm so happy for them that they've done well. It was always, I think that there are certain groups of entrepreneurs right now, they're doing incredibly well. And they're largely really young entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs, Hispanic entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs are killing right now. I do some masterminds in Miami there's some groups down there that are, mostly Hispanic, business owners. They're crushing. And they're so much more glued together than a lot of, lack of a better term, white groups are, right?
Mm-hmm.
The old white guy market, it is not so glued together because we tend to be like protective of our thing, and they're much more collaborative, and it's really showing. I mean, it's really showing.
And I'll say inside of network marketing, my world, same thing, same groups are kind of leading the growth curve of what's happening around the world. And also the groups that are innovating within social media and using innovative marketing strategies and those types of things. Speaking of network marketing, what are your thoughts on network marketing? 'Cause
Well,
you've been around and you've seen a lot of
They've
it.
changed since knowing you a lot. By the way, those guys down in Florida and all those places, they all call me Uncle Perry. That's my nickname now. So I just position myself as the old guy in the room, and no threat. They like me. It hasn't changed. I mean, I had some experience in network marketing very early on in my career. Did a little bit of it. I didn't do bad at it. I just wasn't. It didn't. I don't know. I had other things on my mind, I guess. And I've talked. Sometimes I'll say something about knowing you. Here around town. He's that network marketing guy. And yes, yeah. But I think your mission is so true that when we first talked about it once, you said to me, like, I've seen so many people who had no other options. They didn't have capital. They didn't have particular skill sets. They just had oomph. They just had heft. And you can take heft and will in your business and build something out of it. And where you can't in a lot of other businesses, you do have to have expertise, or you do have, especially so much regulatory crap everywhere now. And, it costs so much more to start the littlest things. It costs less to start the big things than it used to, but it costs more to start the little things than it used to. If you want to be a paint contractor now, man, I'm going to be my insurance and my licensing. And, I better choke up 30, 40 grand before I can sling a paintbrush. Right. So the opportunity that your business presents, and I think for the people who really approach it kind of the way that you do, with a genuine goodwill of forget me, how many more people can I help get out of the muck? I think it's actually a pretty great thing.
How have I changed your opinion of it? What was your opinion before, and what did I do to change that?
I didn't really have a negative opinion. I'd known people that had done very well.
Yeah.
My cousin, Denise Byers, was the Mary Kay, #1 Kentucky Mary Kay lady, right? She always had pink cars, tons of them. She was also Miss Kentucky, so she was pretty. It was pretty easy for her to pull it off. But, I'd known a lot of people that had done well with it. I don't know. It never seemed like a thing that I wanted to do that much. But when you were talking about how, and I'm sure you don't want to only attract people that don't have any other options, right? But it just struck me that if you had no other options, and you hadn't grown up in an entrepreneurial household, or you hadn't had somebody like Mr. White who took an interest in you and taught you basic business when you were 12 and 13 years old, what would you do?
Right.
And I know a lot of people that have grit that would, if they can just overcome their fear of rejection, which is a very hard thing to overcome.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the hardest thing. I always think it's fascinating that, the Mormons in Utah, they go on mission, and those guys come back from mission, and they just become monster salespeople. They're great salespeople because, they don't mind knocking the door and saying, "How you doing today?" They realize that nobody's going to stab them in the heart when they do that, right? It's going to be okay. If somebody says no, they say no, and you move on. I think but I think I took a lot away from that first conversation we ever had about it. You explained your passion to business, and how many people you had seen come kind of out of the ashes that were shocked by their own success, when they came up. And I'd recommend it to anybody. I think that there's probably a lot that goes on in the selection of the company you're going to work for, and your ethics and things like that.
And an interesting thing that's happened, especially in the last 10 years, it's kind of known as, this end of the road when you have no other options.
I think it's the opposite.
Probably. It is. Yeah. It is now.
It's kind of the opposite.
But it's kind of known as, for people who can't really start their real business, right, or whatever. And that's true. There's a lot of people that came here out of desperation,
sure,
instead of inspiration, and, grow it from that desperate place. I heard somebody call it the gift of desperation. Getting the gift of desperation is kind of an interesting thing. Yeah. But what's happened, I think recently, in the last 10 years or so, is other people are just saying, you know what? I just need a business in a box.
Sure.
Something that I can go promote. I don't want to do all the stuff over there.
There's
I want to
tons,
build a
man.
team.
Yeah. You
I
got
want to sell. I
infrastructures
want to
and
build
stuff.
a team. I want to duplicate that process. I want to lead and give me some leverage
Sure.
inside of a business that I can do without employees. So there's a
It's no different than me knocking the doors for the painters.
right.
It's really no different. If you're, you get to borrow the infrastructure of that company. You get to borrow the millions of dollars they spent in development of product and marketing materials and all these things that they give you as tools to go sell the thing.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is that.
Yeah.
And that is the most frightening thing in the world for a lot of people, but it shouldn't be. I mean, I got a buddy of mine that I won't say the line he uses, but
Why?
because it's not a good line. But he was always our buddy to go to the bars with when I was a kid, because he would always get you late. Because he would just go up to every girl in the bar
And say,
I won't say what he would say.
come on, you
but
have to say
I
it
can't.
now.
I can't. But he would always say it in a funny way, and then he would say, "Or do I owe you an apology?" And sometimes the girl say, "Well, I think you owe me an apology." So
Well, you have to say it, and then we'll bleep it out. What is the?
do you want to go home and or do I owe you an apology? So, and if she either, nobody ever just said, yeah, but either she would laugh and he would start a conversation, or she'd say, I think you owe me an apology. And he said, I sure am sorry, ma'am. And he'd move on to the next one, and he never went home alone, right? He probably got some things he didn't expect the next days, but it was just funny that if you look at guys that do really well with girls and stuff like that, and bar scenes and stuff,
numbers?
They're aggressive. They're just playing the numbers,
Right.
just what are you going to do? And I think that your business is similar. It's just, and my business is the same. The online business comes down to how many contacts do I make? How many of those contacts turn into conversations? How many of those conversations turn into conversions? How many of those conversions turn into profitable, fruitful relationships? Ain't no different. Every business is the same. It ain't no different. The only difference is they don't have to do all the stuff that I have to do in the back to make sure everything's running well and all that. And those companies, make a big chunk of the money for doing that, and they deserve it, right? Because your job really is probably the easiest of all, but the more frightening.
Sure.
Right. That's it.
You got to face your fear.
It's
four
just
things people do in network marketing. 1, they sell. 2, they recruit an ever expanding team of people who are selling. 3, they duplicate the process, but start getting some leverage in their business. And 4, they increase the productivity of the teams they have based upon their leadership. That's all they do. So they do all this kind of marketing work, promo,
and they're coaches for
coaching
the most part, right?
work,
Yeah.
educating work, helping people overcome their fear work, all that other kind of stuff. But they don't have to do manufacturing or quality control or customer service or shipping or regulatory, legal, compliance, all that stuff. That's all done by the company, which is great.
I had a gig back there sometime in the past for 6 months or so. I decided to sell insurance, sell life insurance. I was a debit life insurance agent, and I was knocking on doors, and I didn't like it, and I wasn't very good at it. And they sent this guy down, this little bitty short guy from Louisville. I can't think of his name right now, but he was the most energetic cat I ever met in my life. He was just a ball of energy, and he came in to train us all. And he said, come on, we're going to go out on debit. We're going to make money today. We're going to sell some new stuff. Because we had to go collect money from these people however often. And you rarely ever sold anything, And he said, no, we're going to make sales today. And we knocked on a few doors, and, he tried his pitch. And we knocked on this one door, and this guy came, this really gruff, mean guy. He's like, I don't want any more damn insurance. Get the hell out of here. And slammed the door in his face. He set down his case, and he took off running. He said, come on. And he ran to the back of the house. He knocked on the back door. Well, this is like a shotgun house. This guy went and he said something along the lines of, man, I hope you're a hell of a lot nicer than that guy up front, because he's a real sumbitch. I just want to talk to you about your insurance. And the guy laughed, and we ran. It's very much like, I tell you, a lot of marketing comes down to, it's very similar to dating, right? I've got buddies that have all these lines for dating, and they're just ridiculous lines. just because they know if they start the conversation, if they can ever get the conversation started, they call it in a dating, but they call it breaking the set. Like the girls were there with all of her girlfriends. How are you going to break her away from her girlfriends and talk to her a little bit? If you can figure out how to start a conversation with people, it really is just numbers. You know, how many contacts do you make? How many conversations do you start? And that there's going to be somebody that wants to do what you're doing. I think mostly if you're an example, you know, if you're an example of what they want to be, I think you got a lot better shot, right? Because I don't want to go do what some droopy, downtrodden, sad sack dude's doing. I want to notice people who are doing well, that wear really colorful jackets, and live in great big houses. You know, I still want to do what that dude's doing, right? But I think a lot of it has to do with that. I think a lot of it has to do with just, you know, projecting out into the world.
At least a confidence. You don't have to have all the success.
No.
Just have to be going.
Happiness.
I will give you an example. When I had lost everything, I had my financial Armageddon in the early 2000s and lost everything. I mean, It was just awful. And I had started another company, and that company ended up, you know, closing. Fired myself from that company, and came back into network marketing as a distributor. And I had no money, and I had massive debt at that time, like $1.8 million worth of debt.
Wow, that's a lot.
And most of it in back taxes at that time. So I couldn't bankrupt
like
myself.
10 times more pressure.
I couldn't bankrupt myself out of it. It was tough. And I joined this company, and I've had success in my life in network marketing before. And I remember going to the first event. Now I have no money. I have $1.8 million worth of debt. Mm-hmm. I used my parents' American Express card to buy the airline ticket and to book the hotel room at this event we did in Chicago.
Lucky you had a parent with an American Express card. Good for you.
And I'm like, how can I'm terrified of somebody saying, I looked you up and you just sold your house out of foreclosure and you this and this and this and this. So I went up and just told everybody exactly the situation.
Yeah.
Here's exactly what happened. Here's exactly where I am today. I said, but look me in my eyes. I am not going to lose. And anybody smart enough to get close to me is going to make money because I am motivated to not only succeed myself, but to help you succeed. Yeah.
So that's the only way you do.
So it wasn't about my success. It was about my determination. So sometimes your determination is enough.
Yeah. Determination, happiness, people,
to attract people.
Yeah. It's even like getting people to work for you in a company. Mm-hmm. I figured out a long time ago, it needs to be fun. It needs to be energetic. People want to work for companies that are growing, and they don't want to work for companies that are shrinking.
Yeah.
Even if they make the same money, if they make more money. If you look, Silicon Valley's like that right now. When one of those companies out there starts to slip off the hill as being the big leader, everybody jumps ship and they go to whoever's going to be the leader next. They don't make any more or less money.
Right.
They just want to be on the winning team. They're drawn to that.
I just told everybody, don't bet against me because you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And I made $7 million in the next 5 years in that network marketing company from a standing start, from nothing.
That's crazy.
Okay. So, and the people around me did well.
Yeah.
They're still, doing well today, which is fantastic.
That's a great part of your business because you do get to see, like I see people every now and then that are, come up to me and say, hey,
you helped.
You don't know this, but I watched your this thing. And I hate to say I bootlegged it off the internet or whatever. I had a guy, I was at Russell Brunson's thing down in Florida speaking. And a guy came up to me and he said, I'm a pooper scooper millionaire because I learned about you like 5 years ago and I started a pooper scooper business. I said, how in the world are you poopers? How do you make $1 million being a pooper scooper? And he makes about $350,000 a year. He started a pooper scooper business. And I always tell people that what you sell is not your business. You might be, that guy that's got you doing pooper scooping is buying other stuff. So how much more market share can you take? So he started delivering dog food when he'd go do the pooper scooper thing, and he started doing currying the dogs back and forth to the vet, and he made a deal with a groomer and all kinds of stuff. Guy makes $350,000 a year. He doesn't poop. He didn't scoop any poop at all. So other people do it now. And he said, I've accumulated $1 million. And I'm like, that's a super cool story. You know, and I've had a lot of stories like that, but I don't get to see them as up close and personal as you do.
Yeah, we get to be friends with them long term. You know, there's kind of an excuse for us to all hang out.
Right.
You know, that
if you help somebody in their life like that, that's a lifelong that's a lifelong friendship.
Yeah. So talk to me about AI.
Sure.
Because all that's kind of led us to the last 3.5 years and, this whole journey.
Sure.
And now everybody's talking about ChatGPT. Everybody's talking about Midjourney and Jasper and all these different things. And they don't even really realize that AI has been in our lives behind the scenes on all of our social media platforms are being driven by AI behind the 100%. Scenes. Talk about the evolution of AI when you first saw the pattern recognition and said, oh, I'm going to pay attention to this, and this kind of tipping point that's happening right now. And
it's kind of a silly tipping point, really.
What people can kind of how they can benefit from this.
Yeah. The only tipping point right now that's really mattering is a lot of capital flowing in the market. I started when Jasper started, it was called,
I've heard of Jasper the first time, literally 30 days ago.
Oh, okay. So the first iteration was like copy something. I forget the name of it. A guy named Dave Rosemeyer who lives in Austin that I know quite well started it. He got money from Y Combinator, a little bit of money from Y Combinator to start it. It was his third Y Combinator funded deal. And I think 2 of them had failed, and Y Combinator gave money again, which was surprising. But this one took off. And I started using it to write like headlines with and stuff like that when it was GPT-2. And I wasn't around for GPT-1. I don't know how that was. But GPT-2 was okay at best, right? And but it helped me come up with some ideas and stuff. And when I really got into it, I realized it would do a lot of grunt labor that that people really didn't like doing. It replaced jobs that people didn't like doing. And I realized that it was just a tool. It augmented who you are. Steve Jobs, I see back on your desk back there. Steve Jobs had a story about, have you ever tell a story about the Condor?
Mm-mm.
So one of the reasons he wanted to put a personal computer on every desk was he said, he's funny when he does the interviews. He says, I was reading a magazine, sometime I was 12 years old. I was reading, I think it was Scientific Atlantic. I'm like, really? Who reads Scientific Atlantic at 12 years old? While I was reading a Wall Street Journal at the same time, I guess. So whatever. But that they studied the most efficient animals in the world. And the most efficient animal in the world is the condor. It uses less kilocalories to exist, hunt, feed, protect itself of any other animal on the earth. It's the most efficient animal on earth. Humans, even the smartest humans, rank in about number 19 on the pecking order of efficient animals. But when you give a human a bicycle, the human blows every other animal away by multiples. It's far more powerful. And he said, that's when I decided I wanted to build tools. The difference in us and all other animals is really only one thing. It's our ability to build tools. We build tools that help us in life. And, so I've always watched for technology because I kind of got that, right? And I didn't know what I was doing when I was younger at all. I'm much more self-aware now than I was then, but I've always been okay. I've always been pretty good at seeing opportunity but usually pretty sloppy in my execution of it, right? But I think this is, when I started using Jarvis, I wrote with it. I used it to lighten my workload some. And then I started thinking about, I've got an outsourced company in the Philippines. And wasn't really an outsourced company then. I just had like 60 or 70 people that worked for me doing all my stuff. So I started training those people to use those tools so they could be more efficient, to get more
This
work
is
done
when?
for me. 2019, 2020.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we started a company in 2020 called Scalewind. That's an outsourced company. And we have what we call tech-enabled outsourcers. So we have outsourcers that use AI tools to become kind of super outsourcers. And then we rent those people out, basically, or their work out to other people through sort of a labor agency or outsourcing agency. And I'm up to about 325 people there now. But to give you an example, when we first started that business, we were on a ratio of one client to one outsourcer, or maybe two clients to one outsourcer. Now, with the advances in AI, I can run 6 to 8 clients for one outsourcer, and we're outputting way more work per client than we were before, and the work is better, less human error, everything about it's better. But I don't really, I think that all the stuff that I use has been around a while. GPT-3 was a big breakthrough. It could do a lot more stuff. It was smarter, better trained. And then, but that didn't even make a big splash. It made a big splash to me and the people that I knew that were already using AI. We were like, holy crap, this is huge, but nobody noticed. And then they did ChatGPT, which all ChatGPT is a chat robot tied to the AI. So I put a bunch of pieces together about robotics. And so basically what I do now, I use AI to make decisions and robotics to take action on those decisions, automations. No different than you would in your house. You know, if you, when you come in and say, Alexa, open blind 3, well, that's AI and robotics. Because the thing that people don't understand, they don't really understand how almost nobody knows how the AI actually thinks, right? They think it's this big database of information. It's not at all. There's no database for AI. For OpenAI, there is no database. The whole thing would fit on a thumb drive. All of OpenAI would fit on a thumb drive.
What?
There's no database.
Wait a minute. I thought ChatGPT-4 searched everything on the internet and to be able to learn all this stuff.
Right. It did.
Oh.
But it's no different than you. Like, it doesn't reference back to that.
Oh, it just learned it once.
It learned it once. It just has a great memory. So it's a brain that forms actually neuro connections in its synthetic brain, right? So the big difference is, like, you're not going out there and saying, hey, ChatGPT, what day was Abraham Lincoln shot? And it's referencing a database like Google is with search. It's referencing a database and delivering you back an answer. It just learned in history class that he was shot on this day and
give it to you in 1 second.
and it remembers it all. But it's constantly tying that to context of other stuff. So AI, the easiest way I can explain it is just a brain in a jar. It can't do anything. It has no appendages. It couldn't even output the answers that ChatGPT gives you if it wasn't for the chatbot. It would have no way to output. You follow?
Mm-hmm.
So when you tie it to a bot, either a soft robot or a hard robot, and most people don't know the difference of the two or what that means. A hard robot, everybody understands, right? You flipping a burgers or whatever. Like, you're seeing all these automations happening where, like, McDonald's now has some totally autonomous
Amazon warehouse,
right?
Stuff like that.
Yeah, my friend of mine runs the distribution warehouse for Home Depot in Canada, and they have like 8 employees that work in this 3 million foot facility, and it's all done with robotics and AI. And there's no people there. They're all above moving pallets and boxes and all kinds of stuff with automation. Anyway, but when you tie the AI to automations, magical things happen. Magical things, especially in marketing, especially in recruiting.
Well, let's do this. You just finished a 3-day event, your first AI event.
Yeah.
Can you give me the highlights?
No.
Over 3 days, just the highlights.
It's hard. Well, I'll okay. I can
try.
I can. Well, I kind of am.
Okay.
So now I'm teaching this to marketers.
I understand.
Okay. So I'm not teaching
And
this.
my audience is mostly marketer.
Yeah.
Minded business.
Yeah.
people.
Well, I'm usually teaching this to like professional marketers that own marketing businesses that do multi-millions of dollars a year. So it's a little higher brow, right? So not that your people aren't, not that you don't have people that are that highbrow. Yeah. I'm sure you do. But for a lot of people, like most people, you wouldn't believe how many people don't know what ChatGPT is today.
I understand.
8 out of 10 people, 9 out of 10 people you meet on the street never heard of it. Don't care to learn. And if they do, you say, have you ever heard of it? Oh, yeah, I played with that once. I got it. I played with it. It's okay. It's kind of cool. But they don't understand. It's like, I can scare the hell out of you if you want to be scared the hell out of.
I would actually like you to, because I had a conversation with Alex Hormozy and Tom Bilyeu.
Yeah.
And
Tom's so smart, man.
They're both wicked smart, and they're both
I could kick Alex.
Very nervous. Yeah, you could kick his
easy.
butt. Oh yeah,
easy.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Did I tell you about the time I beat him up?
No.
Yeah, because it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. I'll have to send him this clip,
love
so
Alex.
he'll come find you. But they're both on one side optimistic, and there's opportunities available, and the other side they're terrified because when you extrapolate some of this stuff out,
there are certainties.
There are some things that are
unfortunate certainties. Yeah.
People better prepare.
And the problem is right now, the technology is moving much faster than people
implementation can catch up.
They can grasp the pivot, because there's a lot of people that need to pivot right now. And the people that need to pivot the most are the people least in the know. Right. So there's going to be a wealth disparity.
It's going to grow
much greater than it is now. You can build 5 more houses.
So inspire me and scare me to death.
Yeah. Okay. So really the thing that I think that we're talking about that other people aren't talking about is the connection between AI and robotics and what's called no-code software, or building your own software applications, which now you can do in a matter of days, not years. You can do it for hundreds of dollars, not millions of dollars. So, okay, I'm trying to think of an easy way to explain this. So imagine, I'll give you an example of something we do. So I used to want to build a website, right? So I've got a new website about dog breeds. It's one of my media sites. And, there are about 1,600 Maine and hybrid dog breeds now. And there's some really good websites on the web to reference information about those dogs. Well, I want to build the best one ever. And I had this idea for 2 years now. It's going to cost me about $400,000 in content generation and tech to build this thing, because I spec'd it out. And I was like, gosh, a lot of money, And if you don't do it right, no sense in doing it. So I just put it on back burner. So we took it as an experiment. So we used the OpenAI API. Now I'm going to get a little nosebleedy.
Go ahead.
But all an API is, it's just a connection that connects one computer to another computer. So a lot of people are using ChatGPT, and that's you entering stuff. But when you're using an AI, one computer can be talking to the AI and passing information back and forth. So for instance, we just pull down a list of all the dog breeds. Well, ChatGPT already knows everything about every dog breed. It already knows it, right? So we created a spreadsheet of all those dog breeds, and we asked 27 questions of every dog breed. And we had that deliver the answer back to the spreadsheet. So we use the API. So we said, okay, use the wild card is the name of the dog, right? I know this is getting boring, but
it's all right. No, good.
The wild card is the name of the dog. They're like, how the hell is this going to help me with network marketing? But stick with me. So the wild card. So first question is a collie a good dog to have around children? Is a collie hyperallergenic? Do collies tend to bite? Do collies how much space does a collie need to run? So I ran this AI for 20 hours running, answering all 27 questions, creating around a 4,000 to 5,000 word blog post on every dog in the world. And then I took the same API and went to Midjourney and said, give me pictures of collie puppies, collies in full run, collies face first, collies with a side view, identifying the parts of the dog, all these traits, all this stuff. And the AI in 20 hours built 100% of the content. And then we mapped that to a website, and we mapped each field to a field on a web property called Webflow, and the whole website built itself in less than 4 minutes, like 1,600 page website. We're about to launch that site. So $400,000 cost me about $200 and 20 hours, of which the 20 hours, the human work that went the 20 hours was about 3 hours. So that's a very small example of something you can do when you tie robotics and AI together. Because if I didn't have robotics going back and forth asking the questions, the process wouldn't work, right? There's another bot that goes and places that into the blog post now, right? So now I can take that now if I wanted to, which I don't think we will on this one. I could take that whole system and go on this thing called Upwork and said, hey, build me a piece of no-code software in bubble.io that will let people do this without knowing exactly how it works in the back. And it will compile it all. I could get that built for probably $500 and I could be in the software business and be selling SaaS software. So there's all kinds of opportunities. And then I could have people, I could give that tech to my outsourcers in the Philippines and have them do all kinds of work for me. Now, all that's probably a terrible example for your people.
No, don't worry about my people. I just want to know what's working in marketing and what's working for entrepreneurs.
So another way, I was on call this morning with one of my mastermind guys that's in the roofing business in Minneapolis. Biggest roofer in Minnesota by far. He's doing almost $100 million a year in the roofing business, but he's a great marketer. So they're doing all of their contact information via AI and bots. So when he meets somebody or makes any contact or somebody hits a landing page or whatever, his total contact series is automated. So he's using a tool that does personalized videos, which is crazy. So a little tool you can use on AI right now. So Eric could go and model himself. I'll build one for you. I'll send it to you tonight. I do them in 10 minutes. So I can build a model of you, right?
Okay.
And you just smile, and there's a picture of Eric. And I can feed that to a bot that will build videos of you. So you record, hey, this is Eric. Hi, name. Hope I get to see you. It's really so good meeting you at blank. Notice you entered in to get my blank or whatever. And it'll actually make a video of you in your voice speaking to your prospect for 19 cents. And you just upload a spreadsheet of contacts and you hit a button and it makes them all.
To fill in the names.
Yeah. And then the bot will SMS text message them or email them, and you get 500 to 600% higher response to a personalized video than you would to an email or a text message. So that's an example of contact, right? Total follow-up, appointment booking.
And that's really working for this roofer guy.
$2 million a week.
$2 million a week, just from that.
From that and some other automations he has, but mostly all automation. So he's running all this with a team of this guy, and he's he's a very smart guy. I don't discount him at all, but I don't even know if he has a high school education.
Yeah, hard worker.
Right? Hard worker.
Yeah. Construction business.
Yeah. And kind of heavy accent, but he's doing all this with a team of like 5 or 6 people. But here's the question I pose to people when they start to understand what they can do. The biggest challenge for people right now is right here, because it's really hard for us to think about the possibilities that are available to us now that weren't available 6 months ago, right? And young people are going to grasp them. Curious people are going to grasp them. And old farts like most of us are going to say, well, I don't know about that internet thing, if that's going to really work or not. Is it the internet's a fad? I think there's these were headlines, right? Yeah. So, but this is much, 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 much bigger. That sounds
much
crazy.
Bigger than the internet.
Oh, you can't calculate how many times bigger. You really can't.
So, I mean,
because
for some people, hold on one second. Some people are like, if I can go back in time to when the internet first started,
That's where you're at right
I'd
now.
make all the money.
That's where you're at right now.
So right now they're at that time again.
Right.
So how do they make all the money?
You know how stupid I was? I started rubberstamps.com at the beginning of the internet. Why didn't I start Google, right? I should have started something way bigger, but I thought about it in my little narrow area of the world, something I knew, right?
So
one
learning from the last 20 years now.
Sure.
How do entrepreneurs go make all the money
Yeah.
in the next 5, 10
I can
years?
give you a couple of examples, but I'll tell you, this is the question I tell people to lock in their head, and I hope it burns a hole in their brain. They can't sleep at night, right? If you had 10,000 of the smartest people you've ever met in your life, they're ultimately loyal, willing to work for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for free, what would you have them do? Because you do.
And you can.
You can right now. So that
you said that to me, I don't know, 2 months ago, that 10,000 person thing. And I'm like, oh man, because that does really mess with your head.
I showed a really cool example at my event, the first of the event.
And if you can't think of 10,000 people, think of 10 people. 10 people are going to work for you for free.
24/7.
What would you have them do?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get that in your head, now take it times 1,000.
But they're all smarter than you, by the way.
And they're all smarter than you.
They're all smarter than you, and they
loyal,
never stop
hardworking.
working.
They never get tired. They don't need to eat.
Right.
They don't need to go to the bathroom.
Mess your head up, right? So I showed at the first of my event that the Empire State Building has 17,000 employees that work in it. And Harvard Business Review said that the average white collar employee puts out about 750 words of work product a day, right? In emails or letters, whatever they do. So the payroll of the Empire State Building is approximately $11 million a day to output like 14 million words of text a day or something like that. Guess how much that costs with OpenAI Turbo?
No idea.
$34.
Instead of 11 million.
$34. This is the greatest leveling of a playing field that ever has been in the world, ever by a lot.
If you're smart enough to learn how to use it.
Yeah. And if you're not,
so what happens?
It's the most destructive force in the world.
Go forward the next 12 months, people who are utilizing AI in their field and people who are not. Well, what's going to be the gap? Because there's not a big gap right this moment.
Real easy for you to figure out. Because how well do the people do in network marketing that have a downline of 10,000 people, and how well do the people do that have one?
So that's the difference.
It's a big difference. Yeah, because you can do things. You're put on a cape. You're supernatural. I should have brought my little magic wand with me. I get this little star, like a Tinkerbell magic wand. And when I'm teaching, I'm like, who wants to be an expert copywriter? Wave my wand. Now you're all expert copywriters. Let me show you 3 prompts you can use. Who wants to be amazing at prospecting? Now you are, right? And you don't have to do it. You can hit it with masses, but you take these rules of where I have a little advantage over other people is you got to figure out how to make this mass contact not feel so mass contact,
right.
And that comes down to more marketing, human nature, behavioral studies, and things that I've learned in the past. We all just, use our background, right? But the thing is, you can just attack something in so much mass. Now, here's the downside. 12 months, 24 months from now, 36 months from now, it's going to be way more prevalent, right?
Right.
The money's made.
Early stage.
Yeah, I don't know if you know Kamal Ravikant or not, my friend Kamal. You need to meet Kamal. So Kamal's brother, Naval Ravikant, owns AngelList, and they're both enormous Silicon Valley investors. Kamal lives right down the street from me. He's my good buddy. And he's telling me all the time, he said, man, get in Bitcoin. I said, this is the stupidest thing in the world. He said, I know, get in it. Get in NFTs, get in all this stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing any of that crazy, goofy stuff. And when I got into AI heavy, I'm calling him every day because he's got the line to Valley. He said, well, you're finally into something. And I said, yeah. He said, well, you're going to make millions and millions of dollars. I said, I think so. He said, no, you are. You don't have a choice. You're in so early. I was telling you get in AI. I was telling you get in Bitcoin. I was telling you get in NFTs, not because they were good or bad, but you could have just gotten in and just by having your toe in the water made millions and millions of dollars. And I just refused because I didn't understand it, right? So don't try to understand it all, right? Don't even try to understand it all. Just get in there and start moving around. There are some really simple tools. Get the $20 version of ChatGPT. It's much better than the free one. If you can learn how to use an API and tie it into like Google Sheets on your Google account, it's like $10 to tie it in there. And now you can start manipulating all kinds of data. So if somebody comes in and hits your opt-in form, let's say, it's crazy stuff you can do. Like if somebody enters your opt-in form and you can figure out who they are, you can go to their LinkedIn page and read their LinkedIn page or read their Facebook profile, understand more of who they are. And the AI will write you a personalized cold email or a text message to go out to them. It's like, Eric, man, I didn't know you were a Vikings fan.
Right.
Something way more personalized, way more together. The AI will do all that work for you. They'll even run, I've got an AI that will run a disc profile on you from an email. Because they'll go and find everywhere you are online, and they'll put together a disc psychological profile on you and give me all kinds of ways to talk to you, negotiate with you, reach out to you.
Can people use this to automate sales?
Mostly. You can certainly,
it'll still be, it'll be to accentuate sales or
Sure.
to accelerate sales. There's still a human element.
it'll distill leads,
Okay.
right? It'll distill leads down to
Qualify leads, stuff like that.
as qualified as you want them to be. You got to be careful. Sometimes you can over qualify the lead
Sure.
to where you're just running everybody off except the absolute laydown, and that might not be the person you want. Right. So, a lot of it has to do with that.
Recruiting too?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Content, 100%.
Yeah. Content, 100%, constant contact, 100%. Like how, I'll bet that in your business, a lot of people are like, well, I went and talked to 10 people yesterday. Nobody said yes.
Yeah.
So this is stupid. I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
Well, the average person needs to be contacted, depending on who you ask, between 3 and 17 times to take action. Right. So you can do these soft contacts. Hey, just checking on you, see how's things going, man. And don't be like, hi, Eric Worre here with GoPro. I want to show you these 7 strategies today. No, just say, hey man, how you doing?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about you today. Warren, how you doing? How things at McDonald's? You still working over at McDonald's?
Right.
Yeah, or wherever they're at. You could put stuff in a database that when you enter a lead or a physical contact you made or somebody who came in through a forum, say, hey, I know you got that ebook for me. Did you ever get a chance to read that? And there's all kinds of tools that'll tell you like how far a person's watched a video and how you can, based on how interested they were. Well, you guys send them a 30-minute video. They watched all of it. I can actually have the AI trigger me on the last minute of the video to dial your phone. And I'll say, hey, Eric, just checking to see if you ever got to watch that video that I sent you, knowing darn well you just finished it.
Right.
Right. So there's all kinds of these crazy things you can do from a prospecting perspective, but also from, downloading education and inspiration and all the things that are
Curating content by whatever your passion, interest level.
Driving all your social channels and micro segmenting people. Cause you're going to have people like the Obama campaign and later the Trump campaign did a great job at when Obama was sending out emails every day to his base, he was sending 3,800 different emails a day based on people's
psychographic kind of thing,
psychographic, demographic, economic data. He wasn't, the guys in Bridgeport, Connecticut living in a 10,000 foot home was not getting the same thing as the 70-year-old retired black lady in Sumner, Alabama, so you're getting something completely different. And that the AI will allow you to do that. It'll allow you to analyze your leads, figure out who they are. And all this stuff costs money, but it costs very little money. And if you get to the scary part, Sam Altman, who's the founder.
Let's shift to this because I want to close the optimistic part.
Yeah.
With an encouragement to all viewers and listeners to make sure that you're in the conversation and that you're engaged in finding tools that will help your business, scale your business, augment your business.
Sure.
And I know you say you're too busy, but you'll regret being too busy to at least have part of your brain connected here.
You're going to be so sad.
You'll be sad.
You'll be so sad. And can I give them 2 tools real quick?
Of course.
So 2 tools that you really should have is OpenAI has an API key that'll plug into all sorts of different software applications. They're about to have plugins that are going to tie to all your software. But there's another tool called make.com. And this is
M-A-K-E.
M-A-K-E. It's like a $10 tool. It's not very much. But make.com is the crudest form of automation. So you can take make.com and it can do anything that you would normally have to do yourself at a computer. So when you get a new contact, if you go create a record for them in a spreadsheet, or you put them in a certain email sequence, or you send them a video, or if you do whatever, you can automate all those steps with this little tool called make.com. It's like $10 a month. Will get you tons of calls. And you can be the most efficient you can be as efficient as me for $10 a month. If you've got AI and Make, you can do a million things. And on YouTube right now, if you just Google OpenAI Make.com, there's a number of videos on there, the young folks showing you how to connect those 2 together. And by the way, best money I ever spent in my life, $11 a month to get YouTube without the commercials.
Yeah,
because
me
there's
too.
great lessons on there that you can really dive into without getting annoyed with so many commercials. And you can learn. I've learned probably 70% of what I've learned about AI on YouTube, because there's no reason to buy a course from anybody right now. Forget it.
It'll be obsolete right away.
Go to live events, go to mixers, find a group in your town,
mastermind groups,
somebody that's interested in it. If you can't go
at a high level,
if you can't go to a high level, if you don't have the money to go to a high level one, find a AI users group, on meetup.com or something, and just go and kind of get into some of the forums online and watch the YouTube video. Just subscribe. Everybody you can find has got an AI YouTube video. Just subscribe to all of them, and you'll be down the rabbit hole pretty quick.
Yeah.
Because it's magic. You're actually watching magic happen.
Love it. Talk to me about the scary part.
Well, the scary part is a combination of AI and robotics. Most people agree that somewhere between 25% and 50% of all task-related jobs will be gone in less than 5 years. And I believe that's generous. If you're flipping burgers, or if you're dunking French fries, or if you're laying bricks, they got bricklaying machines build a house in a day, and AI makes it more and more accurate and accessible. So like the bricklaying machines, right? They could never really work because
say that stat again in the 5-year stat.
25 to 50% of all task-related jobs will be gone.
All task-related jobs.
And if you think about
in the next 5 years,
I think it's sooner.
25 to 50% of, and how many task-related jobs are there?
A lot.
What are those people going to do?
They're going to get a check from the government.
The government's just going to
no matter how much you hate that idea, it's going to happen. It's called universal basic income.
It's coming.
It's been talked about for a while. It's an impossibility to avoid it, because if not, you'll just have crime and chaos like you've never seen. The problem is right now, the country needs to be investing a lot of money in training, retraining people, teaching them new things. But people don't want to learn. They don't know. They don't see the threat yet. The people who are most threatened don't see the threat coming, right? And it's definitely coming. On the good news front, if there's good news, if you listen to Altman, and I think he's really, really smart. Sam Altman is the founder of OpenAI. He believes that the cost of living is going to plummet, because for 2 really weird reasons you wouldn't think about. And I'll give you a couple things that'll kind of blow your mind. That infinite intelligence, an OpenAI, or way better than OpenAI, is going to exist like your internet connection. So that's probably by the end of this year that AI will pass. There's something called AGI, and that means artificial genuine intelligence. And the reason Microsoft put $10 billion in OpenAI is because it's the first AI ever that's actually shown the glimpse of being able to think for itself. There's nothing to fear there. Because remember, the AI is a brain in a jar. It can't do anything. It can only analyze and think. It can't come out of the jar and get you or any of that stuff. But we use about anywhere between 2% to maybe 5% of our brains, right? OpenAI only already uses a couple of percent of its intelligence is used. That's going to increase by 30 or 40%, they think, within a couple of years. So it's not going to be smarter than Einstein. It's going to be 1 million times smarter than Einstein. And it's going to be piped into every home, cell phone, anything. And what Altman is hopeful of is it's going to solve a lot of problems like that we're not smart enough to solve. It's going to show us how to build infinite renewable energy. It's going to cure diseases. It's going to, do all these crazy things. Like my roofing guy, he's using a company now. They don't put people on roofs to do roof inspections anymore. They call a company that comes out called Eagle Eye, and it flies a drone over your house, and it uses AI to analyze the stress points, the weakness points in your roof, and prepares this 20-page estimate for you and another one to go to the insurance company to pay the claim. And they never get on the roof till they go to replace it. So just another use of AI, right? So medically, AI is detecting breast cancer 5 years before it was ever detectable before. So human life's going to extend, which is not necessarily so good economically, but like a silly
but
little,
I'll take it.
Yeah, the silly little thing right now. I'll give you an example. So I follow this guy on YouTube that I like a lot. I like 3D printing technology and 3D printing. People talk about it a lot. Most people don't know you can buy a 3D printer now for $300, right? So, you want a new dustpan. What do? You go to Walmart, you buy a dustpan, or you order one on Amazon. Not going to have them very much longer. So your plastics that go in the trash can, you're going to save them. You're going to drop them into a thing like a paper shredder that shreds up your plastic in little bitty chips. The chips get melted and spit out this little line of plastic that goes into your AI printer that you got in the garage or on the kitchen counter or whatever. And when you want a dustpan, you just print one. When you want a new case for your cell phone, you just print one. And that's plastics, and that's today. Ceramics are today. So you can do more durable items with ceramics, and you can 3D print metals now, but it's expensive. That's too expensive for home use right now because those are like $10,000. But you could, and you can 3D print meat.
What?
Absolutely, 100%.
How?
Look it up.
Meat.
You get a jug of protein, glunk, 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 and it'll print you a prime Wagyu steak in 2-3 minutes.
Come on.
So the cost of living, indoor gardening has become way better, very inexpensive. My ex-wife has an indoor garden in her house, and she feeds herself from it and gives away tons of food to her friends because it's more than she can eat out of a 1 foot by 2 foot thing sitting in an apartment. So you're going to be able to grow your own food. You're going to recycle your own plastics. You're going to print the things that you want and need. The designs you're going to be able to generate this. So I'll give you an example of something we can do right now. So there's something called Midjourney that we didn't talk about. Midjourney is a graphic arts generator. It could be really fun for the network marketing business because you could take somebody's picture and make art for them. You can do all kinds of stuff. Just give them gifts that look like, wow, they took a lot of time doing this for me, which really took you a few seconds, but they don't know that because it's amazing, right? I did cartoon caricatures of a bunch of friends of mine and gave them to me. Oh my God, can I get one? They go nuts. But it's an easy little tool to learn how to use. But anyway, I can go there now and say, I want an idea for a new kind of salt shaker, modernistic, that looks like it came from the medieval days, right?
A modern medieval thing.
Or not modern, but it'll give me a medieval design, right, of a salt shaker. So it gives me the medieval design of the salt shaker, and it looks really freaking cool. And if I could show you, I wish I could demo it right now because it's mind-blowing what it does. Beautiful stuff. And I could do that, and then I can ask it to show me a 4-point axis on it. So it'll show me the front, the back, and both sides of it, right? I can take those 4 pictures. take them over to this thing on Google called Blender that's 100% free. Drop them in, and it'll create a 3D model of it. And 10 minutes later, I can be printing on my 3D printer. And I can fill it with salt and have it on my table. And I can do all that right now, today. Right? And you can make 3D printed parts that actually move, that have gears in them, that operate, that do things, right? If you need a new bolt for a bolt that broke, or a light switch cover that broke, you just print one. You need anything that's plastics or ceramics right now, you can print for $300-400. You can buy laser cutters and laser engravers for $100 to put in your house to cut and make things with. So people are going to go back to making a lot of what they use.
So cost of living is going to go down. The ability to have stuff instead of buying stuff is going to go down. A lot of jobs going to be eliminated or repurposed.
Housing costs are going to definitely
housing costs are going to go down.
You can brick
extension.
You can brick an entire house right now in one day with a robot bricklayer.
A robot bricklayer can brick an entire house in a
3,000-foot house in a day. Starting from
that's
nothing.
now.
It's right now. It's
I'm
happening.
not seeing any of that.
Look it up. Look it up on YouTube. They're actually laying bricks. They're 16-pound bricks. They're big bricks. They feed them in. It's a special brick that they make for this particular machine. But I forget. I think they're like $250,000. But 2 people.
Bang, 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 bang.
2 people. One guy makes sure the bricks get on the machine. The other guy makes sure the bricks are being laid. And as the foundation shifts or moves or whatever, because of the weight of the building, the AI adjusts where the brick goes, and it's put together with a high strength adhesive, not mortar. So it's better. It's better. It's cheaper. It's faster.
So all of this stuff sounds good. Where's the Armageddon? Where is the Terminator, Skynet? Concerns.
I don't know that there's a lot of Skynet concerns. The smarter people that understand it now, weaponry.
Yeah, people using ChatGPT to identify a weapon that'll wipe out the planet.
I can make your voice right now. I can take any one of your videos from YouTube and map your voice.
There's going to be a lot. So there's going to be a lot of deep fake stuff.
And I can call your brother and say, hey, it's Eric. I'm in Tijuana. I'm about to go to jail. Send me money. That can be done right now. It's going to be the spammer's dream. And deep fake video will be really, really good within 6 more months to where I can make a video of you doing it. Right. So, there's going to be a lot of people, one of the things I'm doing right now is actually
Be careful. Somebody asks you to send them some crypto. Be careful, even if it's your parents.
I'm trademarking my name right now and copywriting my likeness because you need to.
Huh.
Yeah, it's going to be a big deal.
Trademark
even your voice.
Name
you can copyright your voice.
And copyright your voice.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Morgan Freeman's already suing people for that stuff.
How do you do that?
It's done through a copyright attorney.
Well, I have to do that immediately.
Yeah, you really need to, because then you have some protections. I mean, you only have it in the U.S. You don't have it globally. It's kind of a speed bump, But yeah, it's going to be crazy for identification. That's going to be tough. The one of the big Armageddon challenges is just the wealth disparity. When you've got what
people, are we going to do with these people that don't have jobs?
Well, what are you going to do with people that are really pissed off that Eric's now worth $500 million and they're getting their little $30,000 a year to survive on, which is going to be the equivalent to getting a bag of rice and a quart of cooking oil in Cuba, right? Because it's going to be enough money for you just to exist. So there's potential for traditionally in the past when that's happened, it's resulted in civil wars. That's been the result. And there's an arms race, there's a digital arms race right now with AI between all these countries. But the point is, I don't know what's going to happen exactly. Hopefully level heads will prevail like they did when nuclear bombs were made. Right. And they said, well, hey, if anybody uses this, we're all dead. So we better not use this.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. As an entrepreneur, in every single major shift in human history, there's winners and losers. There's people who get in front of it and there's people who get run over by it. the printing press, the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, the car.
I love Ford said, if I gave people what they wanted, I would have made faster horses.
Right.
You know,
The car, when technology started to show up, the technological revolution, the information age, all the different things that are happening, the internet that happened, 20, 25 years ago. And what we're in right now, in every single one of these environments, the people get in front of the trend who have the pattern recognition,
right,
and the awareness and the willingness to take action.
make all the dough.
Make all the dough.
Bill Gates with Microsoft.
Yeah. And you could decide what you want to do with that dough. You want to
Right.
go do it all for yourself. You want to, take care of people who can't take care of themselves. Some of you are going to have parents that can't take care of themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Or kids that can't or won't take care of themselves. And you're going to have the ability to be able to provide for people inside of your family that are going to struggle in this transition. So make sure you're ahead of it. Make sure you're on the right side of history.
It's going to be a little bit slower which is a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because what the next big choke point is hardware. So right now, the only reason AI is not more robust than it is, the only reason you don't have autonomous cars right now is because there's not enough computing power on the planet to handle the GPS navigational direction of the cars. But quantum computers are beginning to come online. Elon Musk has the one that's the closest to, if it's not already functional, the closest to functional. And like one quantum computer has the equivalent of doing the power of like 1 million traditional computers, because it uses something called qubits instead of bits and bytes. Like computers use 1 and 0s, right? So qubits are never in one state at the same time. They're like a spinning atom. So they can process millions of things. A computer, no matter how fast it is only processing one thing at a time. So the qubit can process 1 million pieces of data at the same time, and many millions if it has more and more Q cells. It's kind of a crazy. I don't even really understand it, but I understand that it is the choke point right now, and we're lucky to have a choke point, because if not, it gives people a little bit of warning.
Create some guardrails.
Yeah, a little bit of warning. And, I don't know. I think I don't want to be the other guy. I'm teaching my kids this stuff. If you're not teaching your kids, if you don't do this for any other reason, learn it enough to teach your kids, turn your kids onto it. Because chances are they're going to come up with much more creative ways to use it than you are. Right? Because they're used to video games, and they're used to virtual realities, and they're used to all these things that there's going to be a lot of time spent in virtual reality. It sounds crazy, but if you're going to pay somebody $30,000 to shut up and stay home, slap a headset on them and let them be a big deal in a virtual world, because they'll be pacified until they die. Right.
We're back to Black Mirror.
It's pretty heavy, dude.
Yeah.
It's heavy stuff, but it's also just fascinating every day, because probably 10, 15% of what I taught at my event is obsolete.
And that was last week.
10 days.
10 to 15% is already obsolete. Unbelievable.
There's a brand new piece of technology released 3 days ago that is crazy. It's called Autonomous GPT, and it basically does all the things AI does without you telling it to do it. It thinks on its own what the processes are to achieve an outcome. So you just say, I want to achieve this outcome, and then it goes and figures out how it's going to achieve the outcome. So it prompts the computer itself.
Wow.
It's really, yeah. Look up these terms. Here are a couple of terms for you. Now we'll wrap up. Prompt engineering, YouTube prompt engineering. So you understand how to ask the computer for what you want, because that's a big deal. The people ask the most interesting questions, do really, really well. Look up a term called RPA. It's robotic process automation. And you'll understand that once you watch a couple videos on it, and make.com. And if you happen to be into software, look up a company called bubble.io. It's really interesting. We're building software now in a week that used to take us a year, and we can launch software applications that sell in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And some of this software now, one last story, an interesting story, because ChatGPT codes. Most people don't know that. So we were sitting in the office a few weeks ago, and I said, man, I wish we had a Chrome extension that would just grab this data we were working on the dog project. I said, I wish we could just have plug, when I run across something, I could hit a button and it would grab this page for us and it could go into content, ask questions. And he said, yeah, I can probably get the guys to work on that. And I went to ChatGPT and I said, hey, can you write me a Chrome extension that works like Pocket does? Pocket's an extension that works like Pocket that saves things to a depository, da, 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 da. And it said, sure. It writes the word sure. And here comes all this code. And I give it to Chad's, my partner's a software developer. And I said, does that look like it work? He said, I don't know. It's Python. I don't do Python. And he said, but I'll get one of the guys to install it. We'll see what happens. The damn thing worked right out of the chute. And we had a piece of finished software that did our job. And all I did was write one line of text, make me a piece of software that does this, and just made it. So
crazy.
It writes code. The new version coming out in December, GPT-5, reads images, watches videos, listens to audios. It has eyes and ears, and we'll be able to create video. Say, I want a video of Eric Worre in a tutu dancing the tango, and it's just going to make me one.
Unreal.
So, yeah.
Well, listen, Perry, what I've learned from you, I've learned a lot of things from you, but today, learning from difficult situations.
Yeah.
Be charming, learn how to get involved in sales, right? Pattern recognition, awareness, kind of going through the life school and the life lessons that you've learned and what you've developed during that period of time. In your situation, the value of partnerships, all that marketing experience over the course of your entire existence, and AI.
Yeah, study human behavior, because that's not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
So you study all the human behavior. You can study Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. Amazing book. He's my hero. I finally got to meet him in Scottsdale and spend a lot of time with him. Study copywriting from people like Eugene Schwartz and
yourself.
I don't teach much anymore, but I'm putting up everything I've ever taught is going on YouTube for free this year. So I'm putting
look up Perry Belcher, everybody.
Everything will be out there soon. So I've got 2,600 hours of video that we're putting on YouTube right now. Like you said,
I'm doing
my channel's about like yours. You said you described yours.
Yeah.
Mine's the same kind of show right now. So there's a lot of work's gonna be done, but just really study what makes people tick in human behavior. Cause that's never going to change. So I think I'll always have an advantage till the day I die, no matter what the technology is. Cause the thing is, when cars came out, everybody could drive a car, but somebody drove a car faster than the other guy did. Cause probably the same guy that rode a horse faster. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And when, as these different developments happen in life, there's always somebody that based on some previous life experience is able to leverage that new tool better than the average bear. And I think most of the time it's because of people that either have an inherent natural talent for something, which I have none, or they just learned a great body of work in the past. But watch a lot of stuff there's a great YouTube channel, by the way, called Charisma on Demand. If you get a chance to watch it, it's a friend of mine. It's amazing. And he teaches you how to be charismatic by breaking down all these celebrities and how they act and what they do. It's really a great channel. You'll have fun with that one. And
well, last thing I would just say is this is a big moment in the world. And you need to either innovate or suffer the consequences.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much.
So I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Perry Belcher as much as I did. If you did, do me a favor, subscribe to this channel, share this with somebody that you care about, and until next time, have an amazing, amazing day.